Christmas is just a few days away, and I don't know about you, but the people here in my household are just about to pop with excitement. So this week, I would like to celebrate by painting something fun, simple, and relaxing as my last Christmas tutorial of the year. Also, I made a huge, colossal mistake as I was painting this, which just about caused me to give up on this and throw it out. So, if you'd like to watch as I attempt to cover up that error, make sure you stick around. So, besides the basic watercolor supplies like paper, paints, water, and a paper towel, I will be using a tiny bit of masking fluid today. And so here I have a small old brush that I'll be using with that masking fluid. And it's also a good idea to put some liquid soap in the bristles to help clean that fluid out of your brush later when you're done. I also have a size 0 and size 4 grabby brush I will be using as well. For links or more information to any of the supplies you see me using today, you can find them by clicking on the description of this video. First off, I'm going to take a touch of masking fluid and paint some simple circles with lines stemming out from them right here in the very center of the page for the stamen of this big open flower. Now, I am trying to keep this painting pretty loose today, so there really isn't any drawing required. However, I have very lightly drawn some simple lines just for where I want to paint this main flower, but it's important to note I am not planning to stay perfectly within these lines. I will be going with the flow, but this just helped me to know the size and the way I would like to arrange my composition. So while we let that masking fluid dry on our page, let's mix up some red colors for our flowers. First, I've got some cadmium red here that I'm actually going to add some alizarin crimson to. This is going to darken up the color just a little bit while still keeping it rich and vibrant. Then for more of a shadow color, I'll mix a little alizarin crimson with just a touch of ivory black. Now let's start painting a partially open side-facing flower. I'm using this larger brush and the cadmium red mixture, and I'll paint on some petals of varying sizes that all stem from this point here at the bottom, and then they flower outward. Then while that is still wet, I'll add a hint of shadow color or darkened alizarin crimson at the base of the petals, and maybe even just one line or two of this color amongst the petals as well, just to add some variety of values. Next, I'll paint in 3 small buds with the cadmium red, and again add in a touch of shadow color right next to the base while it's still wet. Now that my masking fluid is dry, I can move on to this main large open flower. I'll again start with the cadmium red, start painting each petal from the center and moving outward. I'm really keeping these loose. I'm not worrying about having lovely, perfect, rounded edges here. This is just going to create a nice, organic, loose feel. Then as I start painting more of these side petals, I'm going to curve them upward a little bit. Then I'll add in 2 or 3 sort of smaller petals here at the bottom. And then I can start adding some of this darker color. I'm focusing this mostly here in the center with maybe a few small areas throughout some of the petals, again to create a variety of values and dimension. In fact, I think I might even add some ivory black right to the very center here to emphasize this contrast even more. All right, while we let everything dry up to this point, let's switch over to a smaller brush and add in a fun bunch of berries on this upper right side. And if it helps, you can draw some circles with a pencil to help with your composition before you start so that you know where you want your berries to go. But you can totally just wing it and paint them right on wherever you feel like they need to go if you'd rather. Because this is a less intense painting than some of my more previous ones, I am not going to do anything crazy to these berries. I am just painting the entire thing with this cadmium red mixture and painting around the highlight. You can leave them exactly like that and call it good, or if you'd like to go the extra mile, you can, as an optional step, take some of the darkened alizarin crimson and put just a dot of that color on the edge or bottom of the berry opposite the highlight to create something of a shadow. Now just go ahead and paint a good bunch of berries until you get the look you want. And if you're finding this tutorial helpful and enjoyable so far, make sure you subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on new tips and paintings that come out each week. All right, well done. We're making good progress here. Let's go ahead now and peel off this masking fluid so we can finish off this flower. You can rub it with your fingers or you can use an eraser. Just make sure that the paint is completely dry so you don't smudge or smear anything. Now to paint this stamen, let's start with some light azo yellow. I'm painting pretty much this entire section with this color, but it might be fun to leave a few white spaces at the tops. Now I'll add in just a hint of gamboge on the bottoms of these little blobby circles and maybe even throughout some of the stems. In fact, I might even add a touch of red at the very bottoms of these stems. Okay, I think that's it for anything red. So let's move on to the greenery that surrounds these flowers and berries. So here let's put a little hooker's green on our tray, along with some hooker's green mixed with some phthalo blue for a blue-green. Now I'll add some sap green and then some sap green mixed with a little gamboge for a yellow-green. At this point, I'll start painting some of the larger leaves that surround this main flower. I'm going to try to use a variety of my green colors here so that they each look slightly different. But pretty much, I'll pick a base green color that I will shape and paint the majority of the leaf shape and fill with. Then I'll take one or maybe even two of the other green colors and add that into a small section of the leaf to create some variety or even a shadowed look and let those colors blend together. In fact, I might even add a touch of red to a few of these leaves. I'm just going to work my way around the flower until the leaves surround it. And coming up in just a few minutes is the big mistake that I mentioned at the beginning of this video, so stay tuned. All right, now that we've got some nice bigger leaves on our painting, let's add in some smaller ones now. So let's start with this berry section first. And actually, before I paint the leaves, I'm going to add in some nice thin stem lines using the smaller brush and some of this yellow-green. And now that I've got some good stems in here, I'll start painting in some small leaves throughout, filling in some of these gaps. I'm choosing to continue using this yellow-green, but you can pick whichever color you'd like. And moving on down and around the painting, I'll paint in a few more small branches of leaves using different green colors. At this point, I think it's time to add in the stems for these little flowers and buds in this left corner. I'll use some sap green for this and add in a few small leaves here and there near the top of the stem by the flower, followed by the stem itself. Okay, now coming up is the part that I made my mistake, and it was so frustrating because I was just about to call this painting finished. I decided to add in one more little branch of leaves down here at the base of the flower, and then out of nowhere, I have no idea how this happened, but I dropped my brush, and of course it landed right on my painting, leaving a big green mark along with several splatters. I attempted to wash it off using some clean water and rubbing it with a brush and paper towel, but unfortunately it was still very much visible. I hate when I do stuff like that, especially because, like I said, I was almost done. So now the thoughts run through my head of, what do I do? Do I start over? Do I throw this one out? Do I try to cover it up somehow? Do I skip this tutorial for the week altogether? What do I do? Needless to say, and to put it very politely, I was murmuring and muttering, and my husband comes in to find out what had happened. And he goes, "Oh, this is great content. Go ahead and show people that you mess up and show them how to fix it." And I did not like what he had to say at first, but I came to find some wisdom in what he said, and I did decide to attempt covering this up with some leaves that I hadn't originally planned on having here. because I felt like it was important for all of you to know that I make mistakes too. I don't always sit down and create something lovely and beautiful with the first try. Sometimes I paint something over 3 times to get it right. Sometimes I drop my brush and make huge goobers everywhere that I have to cover up. So, if you don't feel like your artwork turns out quite as planned, just know that you are not alone in this. Even professional painters have their off days. So, don't give up. So at this point, I am totally winging it here, and I'm just adding in a few last minute leaves to try to balance this out and finish this painting off in a half decent way. I am also going to be adding in my base stems for the bouquet using a little bit of burnt umber. Now for my final finishing touch, I'll paint in a few thin vein lines on some of these larger leaves, and then we can call this painting done. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch today. I truly hope you all have a very Merry Christmas. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please consider subscribing to my channel so I can continue to help you discover your artistic side.